If you enjoy the content on this channel, please like and subscribe. Shortbus is a 2006 American erotic comedy drama film written and directed by John Cameron Mitchell. The plot revolves around a sexually diverse ensemble of colorful characters trying desperately to connect in an early 2000s New York City. The characters converge in a weekly Brooklyn artistic sexual saloon loosely inspired by various underground NYC gatherings that took place in the early 2000s. According to Mitchell, the film attempts to employ sex in a new cinematic way because it's too interesting to leave to porn. Shortbus includes a variety of explicit scenes containing non-simulated sexual intercourse with visible penetration and male ejaculation. The audition website elicited 500,000 hits and 500 audition tape submissions. 40 people were called in for improv auditions and 9 actors were cast, all before there was any story in mind. The film's characters and stories were created collaboratively over 2.5 years through improvisation workshops with the cast. Mitchell wrote the screenplay from raw material generated by workshops and rehearsals. Much of the sex in the film is unstimulated. Mitchell would say, in the old days, when you couldn't show sex on film, directors like Hitchcock had metaphors for sex, trains going into tunnels, etc. When you show more realistic sex, the sex itself can be a metaphor for other parts of the characters' lives. The way people express themselves sexually can tell you a lot about who they are. Some people ask me, couldn't you have told the same story without the explicitness? They don't ask whether I could have done Hedwig without the songs. Why not be allowed to use every paint in the paint box? As indicated in the DVD special features, Suk-Yin Lee and Shanti Karsten each suggested that they be filmed having real orgasms rather than fake them, especially for the final scene involving Lee and an orgy sequence involving Carson. Mitchell also participated in the latter scene, performing oral sex on a woman for the first time as a gesture of solidarity. The panoramic cityscape interspread throughout the film was completely computer-generated and designed by John Baer. In the opening sequence, in which Suk-Yin Lee and Raphael Barker engaged in a session of unsimulated vaginal intercourse, the actress wore a female condom. She would say, "They wanted to make sure it was safe sex. They would look weird if my husband was wearing a condom," Lee explained. Suk-Yin Lee said she had a boyfriend at the time of filming. She revealed he was very supportive regarding her sex scenes with her dear friend, as she called him, Raphael Baker. Mitchell said one of the things he wanted to depict in the film was a growing sense of disconnect between people due to the rise of digital culture. One of the film's opening scenes, where the character James cries immediately after masturbating alone on camera, Mitchell commented, "That for me is the strongest metaphor for how sad and lonely today's digital culture is." The characters all converge in a weekly underground gathering saloon called Shortbus, inspired by the short yellow school buses for challenged students. The Shortbus Salon was loosely based on the series of New York social, artistic, and sexual gatherings. One was the monthly Shortbus Sweetie Teenage Dance Party, organized by Mitchell in 2002 as DJ Dear Tick, his Radical Fairy name. Mitchell was influenced by annual Radical Fairy counterculture gatherings in Tennessee and New Orleans. Other influences included lusty love parties that took place at Brooklyn art collective called Dumba, where the film's saloon was actually shot, and the weekly Sin Salon film gathering, both of which were organized in part by Stephen Kent Justek, who plays Creamy in the film. The still-running underground Rubelard party was also an inspiration. Some interesting trivia notes. To make the actors more comfortable, the director and the cameraman were stripped naked while filming the orgy scene. During auditioning and casting, any interested actors were to submit a 10-minute video of themselves describing an important sexual experience. The director received approximately 500 tapes. The Canadian Broadcasting Corporation was going to fire Suk-Yin Lee when they learned that she was going to be participating in a film with explicit sexual content. Several prominent individuals came to her rescue, including Gus Van Sant, Atom Egerjan, David Cronenberg and Julianne Moore, in successfully urging CBC to retain Lee as a member of their staff. During filming, John Cameron Mitchell had his first sexual encounter with a woman in his cameo appearance performing oral sex on one of the female performers. Amazon Prime banned the film from being streamed after it was submitted 5 times. The film's producers have branded the streaming service as hypocritical for not allowing it. The character of Severin is named after the tragic hero of Leopold von Sacher-Masoch's novel, Venus in Furs. Asked why it was necessary for actors to have real-life sex, an act that can be easily simulated for cameras, director John Cameron Mitchell said, "I turn the questions around and say, why is there an assumption that it shouldn't be in the film? No one says, why did the actor need to cry there? Why couldn't they have simulated it with methanol drops? So by the same token, when you ask, did you really need to penetrate? Well, no, but I'd argue that the audience can tell whether the emotion is real, and if they don't buy it, and if they step out and say, oh God, here comes another fake sex scene." The character of James in the movie is based on Jonathan Coet, the director of whose life is the inspiration for the movie Tar Nation, released in 2003. Jonathan Coet also makes a cameo as the guest who takes some food off the platter of nibbles at the Shortbus Club. Now naturally, some people branded the film pornographic. In response, Mitchell said, "I define, and most people do, pornography devoid of artistic intent. The purpose of pornography is to arouse. I don't think anyone got sexually aroused watching this film." He also argued that the sex in Shortbus is often purposely de-eroticized. He added, "We keep reminding people it's not pornographic. It's not a film that's meant to arouse. We try to de-eroticize the sex to see what kind of emotions and ideas are left with when the haze of eroticism is waved away." In addition, Mitchell said, "There's a certain provocation we had in mind with this film, but more important than that, we wanted to use sex as a metaphor for things that were, perhaps, universal, and themes like connection, love, and fear. We thought the language of sex could be used the way the language of music could be used in a musical." The Korean Media Rating Board banned the film from public screenings in South Korea in 2007, although it was still screened at film festivals, not subject to the board's authority. Now, I remember watching this film back in the mid-2000s, and it's one of those films that will never leave your mind, for various reasons. Some people find it incredibly groundbreaking, and a film that pushes boundaries and challenges societal norms. Others found it offensive, controversial, and pornographic. But whatever you like to say about this film, Shortbus, is that the film is completely unforgettable. Director John Cameron Mitchell weaves a complex narrative that follows sexually frustrated people. A gay man struggling with his identity, a sex therapist who has never experienced an orgasm, a dominatrix who doesn't know how to connect with people. The stories intersect in unexpected ways, leading to a poignant and liberating conclusion. The film, though, of course, has mainly been discussed for its explicit content. And look, this is certainly not for the faint of heart. The sex scenes are unstimulated, and there's really little left to the imagination. But I think when you look past this and see that the film isn't purely pornographic, there's actually a very deep, nuanced and layered story here. And that sex now acts as an integral part of the character's emotional growth throughout the film. The performances here are very raw and authentic, with stand-up performances, of course, being Suk-Young Lee, Paul Dawson and PJ D-Boy. Dawson, of course, plays James, a former sex worker who's deeply depressed and lost within himself, and Dawson brings him to life with such rawness and believability that you really feel for this man and are struck by his deep and dark depression. Suk-Young Lee also turns out an excellent performance here as Sophia Lin, a couples counselor and sex therapist whose marriage is on the rocks as she battles to identify with her own sexual truth. For me, this is a powerful exploration of human intimacy, vulnerability, and the search for connection. It's a film that would leave you maybe feeling uncomfortable, taken aback, and maybe even asking questions of your own self. But in some ways, it is truly a human interest story, and the ending does leave you feeling somewhat hopeful, as these strange and wonderful people all find a way to connect and become a family of their own in a place called the Shortbus. Look, this is definitely not a film for everyone. It's a very liberal and open-minded take on the underground New York scene. But in many ways, this is also a look at a harsh reality. People do live like this. People do feel isolated and alone within themselves. And I feel it's important, as a lover of film and art, to be open-minded to all types of cinema and film. The film balances humor and heartbreak, often within the same scene. John Cameron Mitchell has taken a controversial subject and tackled it head-on, and for that he should be applauded. This is an artist, of course, does not shy away from controversial topics, even creating the wonderful musical Hedwig and the Angry Inch. And albeit a film like this challenges conventional norms, you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, as the saying goes, and Shortbus is a film that maybe on the outside seems to be salacious, controversial, and as I said, pornographic, but at its heart and its core is really a deep introspective look at the human condition. Shortbus gets an 8.5 out of 10.